let's move on now to the Pacific Division. And again, I was kind of like giving names to all these divisions just based on what I saw on the point totals. And I said worst division when I was organizing the Pacific Division based on their point total over under. So you have the Vegas Golden Knights leading the way at 106.5 points. And then there is a 9-point drop off to the Edmonton Oilers, who are at 97.5. But DraftKings has the Oilers tied with Minnesota for the third highest point total in the Western Conference. So when you just compare the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference, like Vegas is just a lot. And Vegas, I mean, like the sports books are a lot lower on the Western Conference. And we've seen that over the last number of seasons where the Eastern Conference has now taken the mantle as the better conference. Because remember when the California teams were dominating every
Chicago,
year?
Yeah.
And Chicago,
Dallas, yeah.
Right? We all viewed the Western Conference as, the best.
The
right?
bigger, heavier conference.
Exactly. The more physical. Yeah, exactly. The more like playoff ready conference where all these teams can do damage. But yeah, now it's definitely switched to the other side with the East. But yeah, so then you got the Oilers at number 2. And then big surprise, the Seattle Kraken. DraftKings Sportsbook has them at 92.5 points, finishing with the third highest point total of any team in the Pacific Division.
You want to hear it, Bruno? Dom has Seattle at 99 points.
99. Oh my goodness.
And of course, it's because of the division, but he has him at 99 points. Slam dunk over for him.
Wow. Holy. Like, I don't know if wow. So he's smashing the over then on the Seattle Kraken.
Big time.
Based on what we're seeing in the market.
And Seattle's tough because it'll be interesting to see like how they approach their season. Like if their lineup stays put or they make some deals and
especially with all the cap space they have. But yeah, so those are the top 3 teams. And then there's 2 Canadian teams back to back. So the next we have the Flames at 90.5, Vancouver 88.5. DraftKings Sportsbook not very high on the Flames and Canucks. And then the 3 California teams, who I said used to be the creme de la creme of the NHL.
Remember the Western road trip that everybody feared all the time? Those 3 games in 4 days.
The daunting California road trip where if you could win one of those games, it would be an accomplishment. But yeah, now it's like if you don't sweep the California road trip, then you kind of suck at this point. But yeah, Kings 85.5, Sharks 83.5, and the Ducks. They're going to be awful this year, 70.5 points. So,
okay.
Yeah, Lepore, give me your take on this Pacific Division.
Okay. One that jumps out to me, and usually when point totals are this high, this wouldn't be the case, but Vegas jumps out to me. Like I'd go hard over on Vegas. I think they might win. I think they might win the President's Trophy because I think that division is so weak. And they're a really good team. And the style they play too, like they'll just outplay like those weaker teams. So I'd go hard over on Vegas. And I'm going to make some fans here, actually. On Edmonton, Calgary, and Vancouver, I will go over on all 3 of those. Edmonton, again, it's a weak division. I mean, they did add Hyman. And as much as we think that deal won't look good in a few years, I mean, they got 2021 Zach Hyman. Question their D, but again, just because of the division and because that team has Draisaitl and McDavid, I could see them having a really good season. And because there's been a lot of change, there could be some excitement. So I'd go over on them. Vancouver's a tough one because that team dealt with we don't know shit about the Vancouver Canucks. Like based on what they dealt with last year, like COVID ripping through the team, not having their best player in Pettersson. They did make that one big deal. But like, I think Vancouver will have like a decent season. Like, I think Vancouver will fight for a playoff spot. Actually, like, I think they will get into a point where it gets interesting at the end. And Calgary, what do you have Calgary at? Like 90.5?
Yeah. DraftKings has them exactly at 90.5 points is the 4th highest point total in the division.
Yeah. So like, as far as Calgary goes, I put them in that same boat of Vancouver in the way that like, I think they'll fight for a playoff spot. Like, I think they'll be there to the end. They have talent. And I mean, there's rumors of a lot of unhappy players on that team. So maybe we get some movement, but I mean, you can't predict that. So yeah, man, I'll go over on Calgary, Edmonton, and Vancouver, all 3.
I love it, man. I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. Like I would go over on the Knights as well because
Mhm.
I think they're going to be fighting with Colorado for the President's Trophy. And I believe you play each team in your division 4 times, like going back to this.
I think it's weird. I think have they changed? I think it's weird. Don't they go like summer 4, summer 5, and then it switches the next year or something that you play other teams 5 and other teams
Yeah,
4?
I don't
Yeah.
think it's the exact. You don't play every team the exact same amount of times, but I think you play every team at least 4 times. I want to say.
Yeah, maybe now because there's 32 teams, it's different because they can actually do it properly. But yeah.
Exactly. So just based on that, like with the Pacific Division, appearing to be the worst division, it seems like Vegas is going to rack up a ton of points. And I think they're probably going to finish. Like, I think there's a higher likelihood they finish in like the 110 point range than they
Yeah.
do in like, the 100, 105.
100. Yeah, exactly.
So I got Vegas definitely smashing the over on them. And you know what? I like your overcall on these Canadian teams as well. Like, I think Edmonton will probably finish as the 2 seed. I know, Dom, for example, from the Athletic, has the Kraken finishing with 99 points. Like, holy cow!
He has Calgary at 99 points too.
And Calgary at 99 as well, eh?
Yeah, and Edmonton, Vancouver at 96.
Wow. Okay, so he has Edmonton and Vancouver as like 4th and 5th in that division.
Yeah.
Interesting. But yeah, I think the McDavid and Draisaitl factor, like, yeah, I'm probably taking the over on Edmonton. And again, like, I'm not smashing the over on them, but I see them finishing with like between like 98 and 102 points.
Yeah, yeah.
That's kind of where I see Edmonton. Seattle, you know what, man? I'd probably take the under.
I think I would too.
On the 92.5.
Again, what's more likely? So they're 91 and a half,
92 and a half.
Like, what's more likely, 102 and a half? Like, sorry, 102 and a half. No, 102 or 82?
Yep,
82,
you're right,
80.
man.
That's how I would look at it. Like, they're not going to be an amazing team, but they could also be like a 500 or a bad team. So I think that's a hard under. I think maybe, again, how Vegas tries to get in people's brains, the whole thing that happened with the Knights. So they're thinking like people will think Vegas is going to do really well, but I mean, as far as I'm concerned, no. I think the smart money's on the under there.
Yeah, I think so too. And yeah, I think people do have Vegas in their heads. Like, first year of existence, that team gets to the Stanley Cup final. They finish with over 100 points. And with this Kraken roster, like we've talked about it, it's a solid roster.
Yeah, it's
like
nice.
it's not bad by any means. Like, it's not bad like, for example, like Buffalo or Columbus or something like that, right? But yeah, to finish, I think I have them in the 80s somewhere. So I'm definitely going to take the under on the Kraken. And then, yeah, looking at the Flames and Canucks, like I talked about this last season, specifically with the Canucks. Like, I thought they were going to make the playoffs in the North Division. Yeah, and I know they dealt with a lot of shit. Pedersen was injured most of the season. They had the COVID situation. There was a lot of things going on with that Canucks team. But when I look at that team on paper and I look at the talent that they have, and then you got Thatcher Demko, who's continuing to get better in net. I'm definitely taking the over. 88.5 on the Canucks. Give me that over all day. And again, it doesn't mean that they're going to make the playoffs, but I think there's a higher likelihood that the Canucks finish with, in the low 90s as opposed to finishing, let's say, in the mid 80s. So yeah. I'm definitely taking the over on them. And then, yeah, Daryl Sutter and the Calgary Flames.
Yeah.
Oh man, you know what? I think that 90.5 is pretty spot on. And I know Dom has them at, would you say 99?
99.
The Calgary Flames. Man, that one is tough because, that's another roster when I go through it. Like I like the talent on that team. I think it's just going to come down to like how everything goes with Daryl Sutter in year 2 and how some of the players respond to him. And, we all know Daryl Sutter loves playing that tight defensive structure. Like, will they buy in? Do you see this Flames team buying into that? I think that's the big question. And if you think they do, then you definitely smash the over on that. And if you think they aren't going to buy into Daryl Sutter, then I think you smash the under on that 90.5. But yeah, you know what, Lepore? I think I'm with you as well. I think it's a slight over for me on that Calgary 90.5.
One that actually, the Kings jump out to me at 85.5. I think I'd go over on that. Like, I think that they've gone through a lot of changes. Hopefully Byfield can have some impact this year. They added Deneau. The Kings are kind of lurking, man. Like, I don't think they're like a good team,
You just see them taking the next step.
Yeah, or I could, again, 85.5. I think it's more likely they end up in the 90s than in like the 70s. Like, I don't think they're going to be a bad team, especially in that division. So like the Kings jump out at me. Like, I'd go over on that one.
Yeah, that's fair. You know what? That's another number that I think is like pretty spot on. The 84, or sorry, was it 84 and a half? 85 and a half. I think that's like pretty spot on. They picked up Victor Arvidsson in the offseason. They signed Philip Deneau. Yeah, man. When you go through their roster, like it's a decent roster. I think that's right. It's really close for me. You know what? I'm gonna take the under on that.
Nice.
On the
we're writing these down, right? Or we're gonna make fun of ourselves the last week of the season.
Someone's writing them down.
Someone's writing them down. Ready to every team we've picked the under. There's a fan somewhere writing it down to remind themselves to fire back at us if we were wrong.
Yeah, there's a fan from every fan base that is probably really pissed off with some of the things that we've said about their teams. Yeah. Even if we've said some good things too.
Yeah, they weren't good enough.
Yeah, exactly. Just not good enough. But yeah, I'm going to take the slight under on the Kings. And then, yeah, I think like the Sharks, I think the Ducks are just awful.
Yeah.
Like at least the Sharks, like they're another team we've talked about where it's like they have like really good players on their roster. So like it wouldn't surprise anyone if they have like a solid season. But yeah, that's another team. I don't even think I'm going to like touch a bet on San Jose at 83. Now I'd probably take the under on them. But again, I would not be surprised if they like somehow, you know, it's like halfway through the season and it's like, oh my God, like the Sharks are third in the Pacific Division. Yeah. Look at this resurgence, right? So
I think I would take the over on San Jose.
You would?
Yeah. Again, like you said, there's talent. It's worth a shot. Like things can go right. They've had some really bad years. Like, let's do it. I think I could see the over. Anaheim.
Yeah.
Are they that bad?
Sucks.
Like,
I'm taking the under on that team.
What's the total again? 70
and a half. And that's really low.
That's low.
But like I think they're in play for the number one pick.
Yeah, that's true. That's one, like that's about where I see it would be. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that one. I think I would go under. Like I think you're gonna see in this division a lot more than maybe people think. It's gonna be like a big gap. Like in teams, like if people do beat it, or it could be anyway, if people just beat up on the California teams and, you know, kind of similar to what you had in some of the divisions last year where there was no real balance. But it's gonna be like everyone's guess is in the air as far as that division goes after Vegas. Like at the end of the day, there's not too many teams in this. Like even seriously, like if someone told you in this division San Jose was going to come fourth, like would you be shocked?
No, not at all.
I wouldn't be shocked either. It'd be surprising, but not like, oh my God, how did that happen? Like the only team really would be, and like even LA, like I said, they've gone through a lot of changes. Byfield being in the lineup now. Like the only team would be Anaheim. Like every other team. I guess what we're saying is we don't think anyone is that good. So it's kind of, except for Vegas. So it's up for grabs.
Yeah, exactly. Anaheim is for sure the only team. Like that would be the biggest shock factor if they somehow found a way to like be in the mix for a playoff spot. That would be insane. But yeah, looking at all those other teams, like it could really go either way. Because even like, you know, I mentioned about Daryl Sutter and the Flames. Like that's a situation where it could end up really good or it could end up really bad. And then even with Vancouver, right? A lot of people are still saying like, you know, the Oliver Ekman-Larsson contract sucks and he's like a replacement level player now. And, you know, how is Pettersson going to keep developing? And I think Pettersson's awesome, but who knows, right? With those Canadian teams. But it's like you said, Lepore, it's like you got Vegas, who I think is a stone lock to finish number one. And then, you know, another big question mark with Seattle. What are they going to do in their first season? And then you have Edmonton, who I think we both agree is probably going to finish as the 2 seed in that division. So yeah, all in all, that division is, I'm very confident in saying it is the worst division in the NHL, but we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, man.